I want to start off today's episode
Yeah.
with a little bit of spam posting.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if you saw this, but Trump was spam posting on Maine on Instagram.
On
He was just,
Instagram.
yeah, this was a couple of days ago. He was just repeatedly posting over and over different videos that was like ranged from like 30 seconds to 3 minutes long, just ranting about random shit.
Hitting,
And
freestyling.
I like to believe that he was like, put me in front of a camera and let me start going.
Oh man, that's good. That's good. And it's also just sad to see that he didn't do this on Twitter. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say. He doesn't have the reach that he had on Twitter on Instagram. You know what I mean?
Because tell me who's watching Reels?
Exactly.
Who's watching Reels?
Exactly. People are gonna discover this like 3 months later and then finally figure out, you know?
If
It'll-
if he did post it on Twitter, he could be like, I got 6 trillion views. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And then Benny Johnson would come through sucking his meat in the DMs. Just ridiculous. But should I roll the clips?
Yeah, we got 2 of them. Let's roll the first one here.
All right, let me see.
Joe Biden's only campaign strategy is indicting me. That's all they can do. Keep indicting him on nonsense. Going on extended
That pause is
vacations and
crazy.
sleep, sleep, sleep. That's what he wants to do. He wants to sleep and he wants to go to the beach and sleep. He thinks he looks good in a bathing suit. He doesn't.
And
No, that's cooking.
did you see at the end there? He said he doesn't, and then it just flashes to Trump 2024. It's perfect.
And it's like a really slow like gradient. Like, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
just slowly fades in. Oh, that's because all he does is sleep, sleep, sleep. That's a funny thing that I noticed this week was conservatives have been going crazy about Joe Biden's like vacation record.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is literally back to like this is 2019 Trump golfing.
Yeah, and so much of it is just body shaming, which I think is gas.
Yeah,
It's so stupid, but it's really funny. I think we got one more that we could play too that I thought was pretty humorous.
All right, let me roll the clip.
Joe Biden is totally controlled by China, Ukraine, and various other countries. They know everything about him, all of his misdeeds, and there are many. He's a corrupt person. He's a compromised president who is leading our country to hell. In the true sense, and I don't know if you know what this means, he is a Manchurian candidate. Just mean that it's not good.
The awkward pauses are everything to me. That I don't even care what he's saying. It's just when he just stops talking.
He's
Just like,
men-
trust me, you and I know you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. But it's so good because he must have just been told about the word or the phrase Manchurian candidate
100%.
because he keeps using it over and over, and I think that's
Really?
hilarious. Yeah, he used it in the Tucker interview, and then he used it in this video. I'm guessing he's gonna keep saying it. It's kind of heat.
You and I learn a new word.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness, going crazy. You and I expand my vocabulary. What a guy. I'm glad to see that he's back. I'm glad to see that he's cooking.
Yeah, no,
Wish he could be on Twitter.
Trump is really cooking. Yeah.
President vacation discourse is always crazy.
Mhm.
That's a fun time. I love how the conservatives, the pot calling the kettle black every single time. Trump went golfing like every day
Yeah.
during his presidency, so that's good.
And
That's good.
it was like over the course of 4 or 5 days, Trump posted at least like 30 reels on Instagram.
Really?
Which I don't know who's got to teach him about the algorithm, but that's not how you do it.
No, absolutely. It's oversaturated.
Yeah, you don't want to spam post. You want to spread out your content over several weeks so you can get maximum viewership. But
Take it from us.
yeah,
Professional content creators.
yeah. But he was spam posting, and those were 2 of my favorites. Others were just talking about Ukraine, talking about other random shit. But yeah, Trump was spam posting, and that's why I
He
love him.
opened all of them with crooked Joe Biden.
Some of them were crooked Joe Biden. Some of them were deranged Jack Smith. That's a new one.
'Cause he's mad about the indictment. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
That's their whole strategy after all.
part of me wonders if this is him in like death throes, knowing that he's about to go to jail. So much like Andrew Tate, he's trying to post his way out of it. You know what I'm saying?
True.
Mhm.
True.
Could be.
Man. This guy, I'm glad to see that he's back though, really.
Yeah.
This is the most back that I feel like he's been in the last couple of months. We're so back.
Yeah, and
We're
Trump
so
is
back.
Trump is so back. But you know who's not back?
Who's not back?
Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell's not doing well.
For every we're so back, we have a it's so over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mitch McConnell has been I'm sure everybody saw it by this point, but he was taking softball questions at some Kentucky press conference, I think, and he froze again. This is the second time he's done this.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but every time he freezes, of the 2 times, really a 100% record, he gets in there and he looks scared. He looks like staring at the devil himself, and it has his own face. He's crumbling under the weight of the unbearable sin. Really, he looks petrified.
And it's crazy because we're all watching this, the entire nation. Mitch McConnell is extremely unpopular, but we're all watching, and we know what's happening. He's old. That's all it is. He's just really old.
Yeah,
but he is like the second most powerful person in the Senate right now. He's been in the Senate for longer than we've been alive
ever,
and he has exerted influence and political power over so many different things, especially the court system. And he's dying right in front of us, and there's nothing we can do to get him out of power. He can run again.
It's crazy. He can do whatever he wants, and I can't wait to see him once the election really gets ramping up next year. Come through and I don't know, retweet or talk about calls for Sleepy Joe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got no room to stand on here.
He's so how can any Republican look at this and be like, yeah, Joe is sleepy, Joe's asleep at the wheel, and then look at Mitch McConnell and they're like, this is a well-functioning, very good senator, a great representative of the people.
Look at Mitch McConnell. That's our guy.
Yeah.
That's our guy.
Oh,
He's
man.
having a goof.
The gerontocracy is doing its thing, I guess.
Man, it's good. It's good.
Welcome.
Welcome back to the show. Sorry, between the cold open and when the intro's rolling and I got nothing to do with my hands, I like to just whip out my feminist literature books and just start going crazy on the feminist literature. Let me put that away.
I'm actually
on the show at hand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm really sorry we had to interrupt you. I know you love reading feminist literature.
Thank you, Jeremy. I see we got somebody else to corroborate my story. I'm always reading feminist literature
and
when I have nothing else to do or say.
Unlike that guy on TikTok, it's real feminist literature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you're watching the video, you could probably tell something's a little different. It probably sounds a little different.
Absolutely.
We're on Zoom today, baby. We've expanded our horizons.
Today's the first day in a long time, little look ahead, that we're talking about COVID-19, and it's really apt, really poignant today because the studio is infected. As you know, I live with my girlfriend, and she's down with the COVID.
Exactly.
This fucking liberal downstairs is going crazy with the sickness, and look at what it's done. Look at what it's done.
I know. In the Lord's year of 2023, I'm on Zoom. I can't go to work in person.
Yeah, the Lord's year of 2023. I'm wearing a mask in my own home. What the fuck is going on?
PLANdemic 2.0. The woke mind virus has struck again, and now I'm on Zoom. I'm relegated to talking to my coworker through a screen.
Exactly. We're working on Zoom right now. We're working from home.
Yeah.
Can you believe this? Can you believe this?
I hope this, if you're watching on YouTube and you can see that we're on Zoom, I hope this fully exemplifies our commitment to the podcast. We weren't going to let a Sunday pass us by without covering the news.
Like a preacher preaching his sermon, we've always got to come to the Sunday service every week.
And with that, I will remind you all to go get some merch. We got our mugshot merch out now. 3 different shirts you can buy. The
racketeering collection.
Yeah, the racketeering collection, the Eras shirt, very popular. Yeah. Very popular. Many people are saying
bestseller. Dare you say?
It's a bestseller of the racketeering collection for sure.
Oh my god, that's good.
I'll also remind you all, of course, go check out the Patreon, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Hit us up, become a patron, join us for the Sunday sermon, or you could stay Wednesday weenie. But I would suggest Sunday.
Yes, always.
Mm-hmm. And before
if you keep up with the news cycle, you won't become a victim like the rest of us.
Yeah. And I think we got, if you want to support us entirely for free, of course, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple. I think we only got one actually, I don't think we have any today, but there was one on Patreon that I'd missed from last week. I promised we would do it last week, and then we didn't.
Classic. It's becoming a pattern, dare I say.
I committed. I said, I promise you we'll read this on the next episode, and then I didn't. But then I remembered to put it in this one, so we got it right here, and I'll read it. This is from a patron, Tay Tay. They say, this was my first political podcast I ever listened to, and I immediately fell in love with the vibe of these two. As a member of the LGBTQIA in a deep red district in Shitsylvania, listening to these two made me feel not so alone. These two are the sole reason I've been radicalized. Sole reason? That's a lot of responsibility. And I'm currently radicalizing more of my friends and putting them onto the pod. I've been listening for about 6 months and I've already finished the backlog twice. Keep up the amazing work. Let's keep this non-parasocial relationship going far into the future. P.S. Go sub to patreon.com/headintheofficepod and shed that Wednesday weenie title like I have.
That's what I'm saying, dear reviewer. Oh my goodness. But basically what I'm hearing is that we're just like COVID. You know what I'm saying? We just be spreading through our friends. We're a fraud.
Yeah.
It's all been a hoax. This has been a 2-year-long social experiment by Prager University.
And we're making a comeback.
Oh yeah. And we got one review from Instagram today.
Okay.
This one is, I try to avoid white men as much as possible, especially ones with microphones. So when I saw y'all's video on my For You page 3 weeks ago, I was confused how it got there. Head in the Office finds a way to make depressing news funny and easy to follow. I'm a queer black woman living in Florida, sad face. It's so nice to listen to people that aren't fucking stupid like a majority of Florida's population. I've been slowly making my way through the podcast archives, and I've indoctrinated a couple friends to be fellow Hito heads. I hope to graduate to a Sunday supremacist when I get a big girl job, but until then, I'll keep streaming and supporting y'all as a Wednesday weenie.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that review. And
So-
just so you all,
Estrella.
yeah, just so you all know, if you hear sirens in the background, loud cars, I can't help it.
And we're working from home today.
Yeah.
We're working from home. It's ridiculous. I'm in the live stream
Exactly. And before we get into the news here, there was a surprise that I wanted to share with you, Gage. I wanted to do this in person, but as we've been relegated to Zoom today and possibly next week, I figured I would do it on here. But it's a present, if you will, a gift.
A gift, really?
I got these on cheap for clearance. Check this out. It's backwards, but it says "Abolish the FBI."
No.
It's a hat.
Where did you get that at?
So, do you remember Perry Johnson?
Yeah.
So Perry Johnson, he's running for president, Republican candidate. He has no chance of winning. He was doing the Doug Burgum thing, but with merch. He was selling these hats for $1, no shipping cost.
$1, no shipping?
And yeah, I bought 2 of them, so we got one for each of us.
We could wear them on the next live stream. We'll cover debate round 2.
Come on, like it says abolish the FBI. It's just a basic white hat. There's there's not a single bit of branding from Perry Johnson at all. It just says abolish the FBI. So I figured I had to, especially because with it being only $1, we're ripping him off. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. It had to cost more to produce that.
Yeah.
Like is it embroidered?
It's embroidered, and now I looked on the website because my girlfriend wanted one because these came in like on Saturday, and they're now up to $27.
Really? And we got it for $1?
We got $2 for both of them.
Bro, talk about a steal. What can I say? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so hopefully next week I can deliver this beautiful, beautiful headwear to you in person, but we'll see.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
good. All right, I think it's time to get into the news.
That's right. Time to get news. Time to get PLANdemic 2.0.
Yeah.
It's back. The liberals are coming through trying to stop the red wave, talking about lockdowns and vaccine mandates.
Yeah, if you all have been paying attention to Twitter or I'm sure Facebook 100%, but I'm not on Facebook, so I don't know, or just been watching the news or anything, you'll notice that there's been a sharp increase in conservatives talking about lockdowns coming back. And when this first started happening about 2 weeks ago, I was very confused because there's been no lockdown measures at all, really anywhere that I've noticed.
There's really no measures for anything anywhere that I've noticed. I see a handful of people wearing masks when I go to work and I go out, and that's it. Yeah. That's it. That's the only remnant of the pandemic that's around.
I had seen somebody, I think a week ago at this point or so, somebody was like, yeah, Germany's fully locked down again with mask mandates back in place. I looked this up. Not true. They're just lying. They just made it up. But there is some news to talk about when it comes to COVID. Even people like Donald Trump in the spam posting that he was doing. Even Donald Trump was saying things like lockdowns are coming back, even though lockdowns began under him.
Yeah, that's his thing.
Yeah,
he did that and vaccines. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, but there are some some pieces of COVID news that I think we should talk about. So it is true that COVID-related hospitalizations are back on the rise, according to the CDC. Since July, as of today, which is September 3rd, they've increased by about 39%, which it seems pretty high, but it's already from pretty low numbers, considering how considering previous hospitalization rates throughout the pandemic. So it's an increase. It's notable. It's not trivial, but it's not as if, the entire country is being locked down right now. So.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. And according to The Independent, this has led to a couple of schools and hospitals reinstating mask mandates, but that's really it. It's a far cry from lockdowns or vaccine mandates, especially as conservatives have been just screeching about those going back in place. I haven't seen any evidence that there's been vaccine mandates, which we never had to begin with, by the way. And I haven't seen any evidence of lockdown so far. I guess it could happen if this variant pops off, but I do not see any reality where we return to like 2020 era COVID lockdowns. I just don't see it happening.
Absolutely not. I forgot that vaccine mandates were even a thing. And the only time that I was reminded of vaccine mandates over the last, like, I don't know, 9 months was when I started my new job and they said, yeah, we're not doing those anymore. You don't have to get the new shot.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool. Like, all right, sick.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So apparently the CDC is looking to have a new vaccine out for this strain specifically. It's called Eris. There's some like more scientific code for it that I'm unaware of.
Maybe some fancy acronym.
Yeah, they plan to have a vaccine out for it in mid to late September. But I feel like an increase in cases at a time when we're going into the fall, people are returning from vacations, going back to school, going back to work. I feel like this is pretty regular at this point. I don't know if it's anything to write home about. I guess it could end up being something much larger, but from my standpoint, I don't really see anything to worry about too much. I mean, keep yourself safe, of course, get vaccinated when you can, but it's definitely not the 1984 George Orwell big government lockdown that they're talking about.
No, absolutely. Unlike conservatives, I can see that things are spiking and think, okay, maybe it's because of this, but ultimately I'm going to leave it to the experts to decide. And we're also approaching flu season, so it's like there's going to be a natural jump there too.
Now, of course, all of this comes at a time as pandemic regulations have basically been done away with. They basically don't exist anymore. And I think what's happening here is conservatives are taking a look at all their culture war items that they're pushing on, wokeness, Ukraine, stuff like that. And I think they're realizing that they're pretty fucked electorally. So I think what's happening is they're desperately trying to find an issue they can fearmonger about that will actually resonate with people and draw people to their side. Nobody wants lockdowns again. Nobody wants things to go back to how they felt under COVID with never being able to see your loved ones, people dying all the time, constantly being worried about COVID. Like, no one wants to do that. But I think Republicans think that if they can recapture people's anger about lockdowns, at least on their side of the electorate, that they can galvanize some resistance to Democrats. But I really don't think this is going to work, because this is what Ron DeSantis has been trying to do, saying that he kept Florida open. And I don't think this kind of messaging really works at a time when I don't think anyone genuinely believes that lockdowns are happening right now. I don't think it's a politically useful thing to do.
You're not getting any new voters doing this. You're only getting the people who were so brain rotten enough to vote for conservatives anyway.
Right.
Like, I feel like this isn't an electoral strategy that can work to gain moderates, because the only people that are feeding into this are so fucking brain broken that they can't help themselves when it comes to hearing lockdowns and just going crazy.
And it's sad that those people still exist, but they do make up a very small minority of the voting base. So they're not going to be deciding elections. At least I hope not.
No, absolutely not. And I think a large portion of it is the same people that go crazy about groomers and gay people, kids being allowed to see gay people exist. I think it's there's a large bit of overlap between them, and they're very vocal in the things that they dislike.
Also, if we do want to just engage in the conspiracy theory a little bit, if it was PLANdemic 2, why not do something cooler than COVID? You know what I'm saying? Come up with a different virus.
Or why not drop like COVID 3?
Yeah.
Instead of a new variant, why not drop super COVID?
Like, it's just so banal. It's so unoriginal that it's like, why wouldn't they choose something cooler if they want to do like a global lockdown to control everybody? Of course, these conspiracy theories never make sense, and they often lack clear motivations. But I think that it's not the point that they are attempting to make sense or be logical. I think what Republican think tanks and conservatives are doing is picking a conclusion, which is lockdowns are back, and working backwards from there to try to justify it. And I just don't think it's going to work.
I can't wait till next year when there's another natural spike at the end of summer, and then all of a sudden conservatives are talking about, oh, well, you see, they're actually dropping a new variant so that they can initiate mail-in balloting yet again, so they can steal this election.
Well, that's what they've been calling this. They've been saying that this is the COVID election variant. But of course, the problem is voting doesn't happen. This isn't an election year. Voting, even for the primary, doesn't start until February. And if your idea, I think it's February for the Iowa caucus, And if your idea is that they're trying to steal this for Joe Biden, voting doesn't happen until November of next year, over a year away. So how could this be? How could this be the election variant? I don't get it.
They'd have to be cooking for a long time for PLANdemic 2.0 to really take effect. And if that's really what's going on, I think I'd have to give it to them.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of patience and a lot of dedication.
If they could pull this off, then I think it would prove an amount of motivation and dedication that we never see in politics, and we should just give it to them.
It's admirable. You know what I'm saying? It's like an evil plan, a master plan coming through.
Nobody works this hard anymore, and if they're willing to do that to get Joe Biden elected, you know what? Give it to the Democrats.
Yeah.
I've not seen this much initiative out of them ever in my lifetime, so go for it.
Back when conservatives were talking about people need to get back to work, people aren't working hard enough. You know who works the least? Fucking like campaign strategists, bruh. They're cooking right now. If this is what's actually happening, and I gotta applaud that.
You have to. You gotta respect it.
As someone who values hard work, like I get on here. Do every Sunday. Like,
unfortunately, I don't think Democrats are trying that hard. I think they're okay if they lose elections. They're definitely not trying to overthrow it with some contrived, overly complicated plot to convince people there's a new strand. Like, that's just not happening.
Oh, literally.
Yeah. Anyways, is that enough COVID news, or do we got more?
Oh, no. We have some more COVID news. And this one's coming from the U.S. Fifth Circuit of Appeals. We've talked about them a lot. Notoriously conservative, notoriously always on the wrong side of crazy decisions. And this time, they're coming through to allow a case to move forward that was brought by 3 doctors who alleged that the FDA overstepped their advisory role in their condemnation of ivermectin as a COVID-19 treatment. The 3 doctors, they're alleging that the FDA's campaign against ivermectin, like their information campaign, directly harmed their practice as they lost professional privileges due to their ivermectin advocacy. One doctor said that they lost admitting privileges at the Texas hospital, while another said that they lost their position at a medical school and a hospital as a result. So originally, this lawsuit was thrown out by a judge based on the FDA's sovereign immunity, which is basically you can't just sue the government in a civil case for nothing unless they really did something wrong. And the Fifth Circuit said, oh no, the FDA, the I don't know, foremost authority on drug safety, overstepped their authority when telling you, hey, this drug isn't safe.
That's crazy. Isn't that what they're supposed to do?
That's what I thought. But the Fifth Circuit of Appeals is saying that what the FDA did stepped out of their advisory role, and the FDA can't come out and explicitly recommend or like condemn drugs, which don't they recommend drugs all the time?
I guess I'm not that familiar with the law and the FDA and exactly what they're able to do. But I feel like advising seems the same as saying, hey, don't take this. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying, because to advise, you kind of have to recommend and you have to position something over another thing. And there's an inherent condemnation when you do anything like that.
Yeah.
And what they were doing was coming out here and saying, hey, nothing has been done to prove that ivermectin is safe to treat this one disease specifically. And a lot of this lawsuit hinges on the fact that some of FDA's marketing was like, you're not a horse. Yeah. Because I've been popular horse dewormer. We've talked about it before back when COVID was popping off like crazy. And they're saying, yeah, that was actually too much, FDA. You can't do that.
Right.
You can't do marketing to help keep people safe, but like whatever. And so that's pretty gas. I love how all the new COVID news really just hit again. And we're reopening lawsuits that got dismissed a year ago just for the hell of it.
You know, conservatives will say that, like, oh, the COVID propaganda is coming back and Democrats are going to try to take away your freedoms again. If anything, the stories today suggest to me that conservatives are doing some effort in unison to bring COVID propaganda back and to scare people, just in the opposite direction. Because, I mean, again, I haven't seen any evidence that Democrats are doing this. It just seems like conservatives, even those that occupy powerful positions in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, are kind of hopping on this this COVID bandwagon of fear-mongering once again, or at least bringing it back into the headlines. I don't know.
And just restarting out of nowhere. And it's like the funniest thing about this to me is that these 3 doctors are trying to sue the FDA by saying that their information campaign caused their like professional career to be in shambles. But I feel like it's very reasonable to argue that the fact that they went against scientific consensus in a scientific field and the scientific leaders in that field disciplined them for it is kind of enough to justify why they lost their authority.
Right.
You know, you don't have to make a bunch of leaps to get to that conclusion. You don't have to go through and say, the specific wording of this FDA campaign must have gone and influenced the leaders at this hospital to then think that these specific doctors were doing this outside of what medical consensus says that the FDA was putting forward with this campaign.
Also, importantly, even if this case goes through and the FDA is deemed to have overstepped their authority or whatever, that doesn't mean that ivermectin works. But I think a lot of conservatives will treat it as though this court says ivermectin officially works. This court rules that the FDA was wrong. Like that's not what's going on here. Even if this case, even if they take this case further and the FDA is proven to have done something wrong, that doesn't mean that conservatives were right. It's wholly a procedural thing, it seems to me.
100%. It's incredibly pedantic, but if they somehow win, which I don't think they're going to, it's going to be hell, bro. It's going to be ivermectin discourse 2.0, and I'm not prepared to deal with it. I'm really not.
Yeah, that's gonna be crazy. Also, I don't have this in the show notes anywhere, but have you seen what's going on with Doja Cat?
I saw the pictures of her, like, I don't know, in devil makeup or something.
Yeah, well,
I saw that.
That's what I'm referring to. She can do whatever she wants. I don't care about what she's doing, but I am very excited for the conservative backlash that will inevitably come from this, just like the Lil Nas X drama when he twerked on the devil or whatever. It's going to be fun.
And then he dropped, like, shoes with, like, blood in them. And they're like Air Max 95 dupes with blood in them or something. And then I think Doja Cat also there's like conservative backlash when she like dressed up in like, I can't even say she dressed up in all red, but she had that weird funky makeup on to go to like, was it the Met Gala?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Same thing happened with Sam Smith at the Grammys or at the VMA, wherever Sam Smith did that one performance. The Satanic Panic's just coming back with little fervor and not as much force as I'd like it to.
Yeah, and I feel like I can tell at this point that a lot of singers or artists or whatever are doing this explicitly to get conservatives to react because it keeps them in the head. Like, it's pretty obvious that they're rage baiting here, and it's working. They're getting it done.
Strategy. Yeah, that's it. Like, you can just look at the picture and move on, bro. Like, that's all you got to do.
Speaking of Satan, it might be time to talk about Joe Biden.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I've been saying, actually.
This time, though, we're talking about Joe Biden in a positive light, although this isn't directly Joe Biden's work. He is, of course, related to it because we're talking about the NLRB. But basically, Joe Biden's a hero of the proletariat this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do tell.
So in some pretty big news that I think was generally overlooked, I haven't seen it reported much for reasons we can get into. The NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board, gave out a new set of rules about forming unions in your workplace, and it greatly shifts power towards unions. And again, I haven't seen this covered much, but the NLRB, for those that don't know, they oversee union elections and labor disputes. It's a fairly broad jurisdiction. Some of this also goes to like state courts and stuff like that. But the NLRB, for the most part, deals with a lot of labor disputes, stuff like that, when there's like union busting and that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're the people that made every Starbucks in the country put up a list of all the labor violations that the CEO engaged in. And also, I think, made the CEO send an apology video out to everyone. You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We covered that. They did that. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, the NLRB is it's a board that's it's a part of the a part of the executive branch, and it's a board that's appointed by the president. So Biden has quite a bit of sway when it comes to the ideological makeup of the board. Of course, under Trump, they were pretty conservative. They were not very nice to unions. Under Biden, it seems they're expanding what unions can do and expanding the power unions have. So this is a quote straight from the NLRB website. I'll just read exactly what their ruling said. It said, quote, "Under the new framework, when a union requests recognition on the basis that a majority of employees in an appropriate bargaining unit have designated the union as their representative, an employer must either recognize and bargain with the union or promptly file a petition seeking an election. However, if an employer who seeks an election commits any unfair labor practice, that would require setting aside the election, the petition will be dismissed, and rather than rerunning the election, the board will order the employer to recognize and bargain with the union." So pretty huge.
That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty huge. This does two things. First, it makes it so the onus of responsibility for a union election isn't on the union, but instead is on the employer. So if the employer doesn't call for a union election, the union just has to be recognized legally. They don't have to take a vote if they're claiming they got majority support. If the employer wants to contest that, opinion of the union, they have to file for the election. And 2, it also makes committing an unfair labor practice charge super expensive. Like, they immediately get recognized if you do any ULP, and that's going to make it pretty impossible for union busting to occur, especially if the NLRB stays this woke on labor issues. So this is only good news. This is great news for unions around the country that are trying to form, at least.
That's crazy. But it's also one of those things where I would have thought that this was already the status quo. You know what I mean? I would have already thought that this was something that was out here. Like, you vote to form a union, you should be immediately recognized.
Yeah.
It's good that it's here now, but it's one of those things where it's like, fuck, man, that's how far back we were.
Well, yeah, and that's that's the context of all of this that makes me a little sad, is that this is like the most pro-union thing to have happened since FDR. And like, the bar is in hell, but we've surpassed it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. It's all about progressing relative to where we were before. Sometimes you have to meet people where they were at.
Yeah. How it worked previously, I think, is you had to do a union card drive and get, I don't know, some percentage of union members to sign a card. And then you can tell your employer, hey, it's time to bargain. We've got more than half of our workplace on board. And then they could just say no. And they didn't want to do that. They could just ignore you. And then you had to file for a union election. And then they could basically union bust as much as they wanted, things like putting up flyers, intimidating workers, that sort of thing. And there was basically no consequence other than if the NLRB was feeling it, they could say, yeah, you got to redo the election. But here they're saying, no redoing the election. If they commit an unfair labor practice, you just win, which is gas.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
If only something like this was around when Amazon workers were trying to unionize in Alabama.
Yeah. And I got to think that this is in direct response to Amazon and Starbucks, John Deere, and a couple. John Deere might have. No, they were on strike. They weren't trying for a union. What was the other place? I can't remember what other big one was trying for a union.
I don't know.
Amazon and Starbucks were the big ones, though, certainly.
Yeah, for sure.
And Amazon and Starbucks both committed a litany of unfair labor practices, hiring people that Democrats paid previously, by the way, to come in and just union bust as much as possible, intimidate workers, all that kind of stuff.
You could have a union, or you could have a PS5. Like, that's all I'm going to say. You could pay your union dues, or you could get a PS5.
Yeah, but now that kind of stuff is hopefully not going to happen. Now, it's likely that employers will respond to this by just calling for a union election anytime they hear anything about a union. But I think in that case, if your employer is going to do that, it should be easier to win now that they can't just completely undo the democratic process of voting. So that's good, right? It's all around a W.
That is good. This is big W's for labor.
Now, of course, this isn't the be-all, end-all of class warfare, and Biden has had a, let's say, mixed record on labor at best. But this is still good. Any inch given to the worker should be exploited for more power. So generally, I think it's a good thing. There was also, I think, the Secretary of Labor, who I can't remember who it is under Biden, and Janet Yellen, Department of the Treasury, Secretary of the Treasury. Both of them said, like, yeah, a lot of our problems right now is just not big enough unions. We don't have enough unions in the country, which is good, right? Generally a good thing.
That is good, especially when unionization is on the rise over the last 2 years, despite being down like tremendously. It is on the rise again, and the more that we can have support from the people higher up, the more easier that it will be for the momentum to keep going.
Yeah. And the NLRB had another ruling that was admittedly a bit more vague back at the beginning of August. I think that's why we didn't cover it, because I didn't fully understand its context. But basically, it cracks down on some workplace rules that make organizing a union more difficult, which is a little different from what's happening here. But altogether, it's a couple of rulings from the NLRB and vocal support from various people in the cabinet, which is, again, the bar is in hell, but it's better than what we've got in a very long time.
Big facts.
Yeah.
Big facts.
And, I mean, anybody that's on the left should recognize that any tiny modicum of power we can seize from people, even if it's just social power, should be exploited as much as possible, because the labor movement in this country is not in a good shape.
They give an inch, we take a mile. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly. Altogether, good news, though.
Altogether great news, but is it time to move on to some unfortunate news?
Yeah, some bad news.
Yeah.
So last Monday, which is just like a day, I think it was probably less than 24 hours after we recorded the last episode, there was a mass shooting in Jacksonville, Florida. It resulted in the deaths of 3 black people. Now, the race here is important because this was a race-based attack, which we'll get into. It was a hate crime. Like,
Yeah.
it's plain and simple, it was a hate crime. The shooter here was a 21-year-old white man who had writings that were found by his parents describing his hatred for black people and other minority groups. His weapons also had swastikas drawn on them. No ambiguity.
It must be a psyop, really.
Oh, I've seen people say that.
No way.
Yeah. A lot of right-wingers have just straight up backed away from this, not said anything, which is the smart thing to do. A couple of them, including Vivek, our boy Vivek, came in and said, like, oh, well, he suggested that it was the fault of affirmative action for dividing the country further.
Come on.
It was
That's crazy, bro. You already won the affirmative action decision. What do you need to do and bring it back? Like,
yeah, he had said that we had like a legal system set up meant to divide based on race. And what he was implying was it's affirmative action.
we do have legal systems meant to divide based on race. The prison system. Like, what is bro cooking? Like, we have sentencing disparities. We have crack cocaine. Like, come on.
Typically, when mass shootings happen, we all play this game, and by we I mean like people that are political commentators, politicians, that kind of thing. Everyone plays the game to try to assign them to an ideology. It's pretty explicit here. No ambiguity.
Oh, he did it himself, and usually it's always pretty explicit. But like, I mean, at least this guy was a white guy instead of a Hispanic guy with a swastika tattoo like last time.
Yeah. Well, and it's like,
because he was Hispanic last time, they got to claim no, he can't be one of us.
well, they said he must be an immigrant, even though he literally had a swastika tattoo.
Yeah.
And then back when there was that, was it a trans woman that shot up a school a couple of months ago? They were like, oh,
they're still talking about it.
Yeah, they were like, oh, they must have been a radical leftist when there's literally no evidence to suggest that was the case.
The trans shooter is still like all over Twitter and r/conservative. And like every week they keep bringing up why haven't they let us see the manifesto? Why haven't they let us see their journal? Is because they're trying to hide one of their own? Is that what's going on?
It's like the first trans shooter in like 80 years to do anything like that, and they're like, this must be representative of the entire left. But no, there's no ambiguity here. This guy was racist. He was a neo-Nazi. He was trying to kill black people in Jacksonville, and he accomplished his task before I think he took his own life, which is how a lot of shooters end it, right? Now, what's interesting to talk about with this story is the more the political implications on DeSantis himself. Of course, this was in his state of Florida, so he got off the campaign trail and came back to Jacksonville shortly after the shooting happened to talk about resources that would be directed to victims and the families and the community. Nothing he said was particularly egregious. He didn't get up there and do racial agitprop, as far as I could tell, but he was booed by the crowd for quite a while. And
really, just like for his presence, just for being there.
Yeah, when he tried to talk, he was just booed. And one of the Democratic city council people, I think, she had to come in and be like, hey, guys, let's just listen to what he has to say, and we'll work together. So it was crazy. He was just getting booed like crazy.
I feel like conservatives are starting to turn on DeSantis. And I say that for my brief time on the r/conservative this morning. Because when I was scrolling through trying to find stuff this week, there's this one thing out of Florida where they had an election map overturned. It was deemed unconstitutional, but it wasn't super fruitful outside of that. But I was reading the comments of what conservatives were saying, and r/conservative, where only flared users can post that in their little safe space. And everyone was like, yeah, fuck DeSantis. Like, of course he would do something like this. Is the only unconstitutional thing he's done. I'm like, what?
So they're coming out against DeSantis?
Yeah, a bunch of them were, and I was really confused. And I wonder if people are starting to turn on him. Sample size is pretty low, but I feel like it speaks for itself.
I mean, maybe, but did they really like DeSantis for him being such a law and order, strict to the Constitution guy? I thought they liked him because he was, racist, and
that's exactly why they like him, because he doesn't like LGBTQ people,
right?
Like. That's it. He kept a little bit of Florida open, kind of, and he hates gay people.
Yeah. Interesting. But the thing I really want to talk about here is that we always do this song and dance, as I said, trying to assign political ideologies to shooter. But here, a mass shooting happens. It's clear what the conditions were that motivated this attack. It's clear what this person's ideology was. And then the thing that always happens, even when the shooter is explicitly racist, doing a hate crime, as we've seen before, right-wing politicians come in because they have to talk about it, especially if they're the governor of the state. They have to say something. And these right-wing politicians, they'll act all solemn. They'll pretend like they care. But this is all after, of course, DeSantis has basically led a war on black history in the classrooms. He rejected the AP African American History course. He's defunded DEI programs in colleges, and he wrote a law saying that companies can't do it in the state of Florida.
And he said that slavery wasn't entirely bad.
Yeah, he said slavery was a little bit justified. Ron, to slavery wasn't so bad.
Exactly.
He has fought to get CRT banned in every avenue that he can find. I think it's pretty glaringly obvious why a shooter in Florida would feel emboldened to do something like this. I feel like that's not that controversial of a take, right?
No, absolutely not. And it goes without saying, but I will anyway, that obviously, especially when Ron DeSantis is the governor, they're not even going to address the underlying issue that is how easy it is to get a gun, easy it is to duck red flag laws, just all of that. And I don't even know if this time they're going to go on about mental health.
Yeah.
Just empty platitudes about how, we need more mental health care without actually wanting to do anything about it legislatively.
And it's also notable that when DeSantis did his press conference and as he's talked about it in the media, he hasn't come out and condemned this guy as a racist shooter. He hasn't really, he's mentioned that it was race-based, but he hasn't done much to say like, this guy had swastikas drawn on his weapons. And, he hasn't done the kind of strong condemnation that you would expect from, say, a Democratic senator that came out and talked about this.
Yeah.
And that's because I think we've seen the past several months that DeSantis, in his own campaign, has Nazis in his ranks.
Founded by him. I was going to say maybe the one guy that made the Nazi promo for him told him, hey, whoa, it's a bad idea to condemn this guy. And he took it to heart. He's like, oh, okay, you're right. I trust you and your judgment.
And he did come out and say, like, yeah, this shooter was bad. Like, obviously, he's not pulling for the shooter here.
Yeah,
but
he was a bad guy.
But you can,
that's all I'm going to say.
You can tell in his rhetoric he's individualizing this and not taking it as the broad critique of conservative ideology that it should be, because if he did that, then it's up for him, right? He can't possibly use this understand this as a critique of what conservatives have been doing. Otherwise, where does that put him? It's pretty obvious what he's trying to do, especially as we've seen throughout, at least since 2021, according to FBI statistics, that hate crimes are at an all-time high, or at least a recent high in modern history. And we've seen a lot of these are race-based attacks. And obviously, it's exceedingly unlikely that you as an individual listening to this would ever be the victim of a hate crime. But what we should analyze is the overarching political environment that makes stochastic acts like this more likely. And I think we can point to a conservative movement that has thoroughly attacked Black history in the classroom, CRT, etc., as a proxy for saying that, we're racist still.
Yeah, and it's also, although you are unlikely to yourself be the victim of such like an egregious hate crime like this, it's the fact that it could happen. It's the fact that it's a reasonable possibility with the political climate that we exist in now that someone can just go out there and feel so emboldened by white supremacist rhetoric to get out and do another mass shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, right-wing politicians always backpedal when things like this happen. But that's the point, right? Is that they use their rhetoric to inflame the feelings of racist white people, and then racist white people go out and do things like this they're clearly racist, wrote about it, had swastikas on their weapons, and then they back away as if they have no responsibility for any of the rhetoric they put out there. I mean, if you as DeSantis are going to spend a couple of years now dedicating your political authority to getting rid of diversity trainings or getting rid of diversity as a whole, as a goal across your state, then of course people are going to feel as though this kind of thing is justified because the person they look up to is saying it is.
And it's like Ron DeSantis is probably one of, if not the guy that has made culture war issues so fucking popular the last few years. It's ridiculous how much responsibility that he carries for the discourse that we have every week.
Yeah, and of course this is all besides the fact that a lot of the time when Ron DeSantis or other right-wingers are talking about, say, affirmative action, for example, they're doing it on behalf of, or they're doing it to say white people are being discriminated against. Sometimes they say Asian people, but we know they mean white people are being discriminated against unfairly. But I think what this message sells to people that do attacks like this is that Ron DeSantis and other conservatives are fighting against the effects of multiculturalism, and they're trying to protect the white race because it's all a euphemism, right? And of course, we haven't gotten to the point where the euphemism has fully died, at least not yet. But I think it's pretty obvious what politicians like Ron DeSantis and all the rest of the GOP are trying to accomplish when they say things like diversity is not a strength, or they come out against wokeness and CRT as something that is undermining Western civilization or destroying the United States. Yeah, exactly. I think it's pretty clear.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. They're Ron DeSantis, Ron DeSanctimonious, Meatball Ron DeSlavery wasn't that bad. Whatever you want to call him. Not a good guy.
No.
Not a good guy.
Yeah. And this is all, of course, didn't even mention that when he was on the campaign trail in 2018, debating his candidate, a black man, on the debate stage, he said, Florida, don't monkey this up. I mean, come on. Come on. That's not a slip up you make, right? That's intentional.
So fucked. That's so fucked. Oh my God.
It's intentional. Before we end our agenda of news stories here today, we do have a little bit more news out of Florida. There was a recent hurricane that went through Florida and some other parts of the Southeast. Luckily, I don't think there were that many deaths. I think there's one confirmed out of Florida, maybe a couple other places related to the storm, which is tragic, but it's not as bad as people thought. Yeah.
No, it's no like Hurricane Sandy or whatever it was a while ago. It's it wasn't as bad as some people felt like predicted it to be, because hurricanes, when they touch down, you never really know what's going to happen. So it's fortunate that it wasn't that bad, but still.
Yeah.
Big slept through.
There's not a ton of major news here to talk about, but it did force Biden and DeSantis to work together on disaster funding and relief programs, stuff like that, which is the same thing we saw last year with, was it Hurricane Ian that hit Florida, which was, I think, a lot worse than this one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where he wore the white boots.
The white boots,
and
yeah.
Got the Florida cracker picture.
We got the Florida cracker picture. We got DeSantis and the white boots that were unblemished. They were pristine quality, not touched by any mud.
That's crazy. Imagine trying to claim that you're a working class guy, that you fight for the working class, and showing up to a disaster in white boots. Like, I feel like right there, that are pristine. Like, thinking that you could even do that and get away with it is crazy.
Pristine white boots that look untouched. They look in perfect condition. Like, come on now.
Yeah. God, dude. So beyond white collar there. It's ridiculous. Didn't DeSantis, I feel like I'd seen some news about DeSantis ducking like a meeting with Biden, though.
Yes, that did happen.
Bro, it's so petty. They're so petty. I love it.
I think DeSantis said at first, like, oh, we got it handled and we don't need like federal authorities coming in and, I don't know, messing up supply chains or something like that. Biden still showed up because it's a disaster and he's the president. But DeSantis did try to duck him, yeah.
I did see some people, I think it's in reaction to this, maybe to Biden showing up to here, start bringing up East Palestine again.
Yeah.
Which was wild. I was like, oh, okay, that's something we're talking, which obviously Biden should have went and visited East Palestine, especially if Trump did. That was an optical fumble. But I feel like to bring it up now, we're so beyond the point there. I don't know.
Yeah, and East Palestine was, I think, different because it wasn't a natural disaster. It was human caused because of our lack of regulation of the rail industry.
That Trump did, which is crazy.
Yeah, that Trump contributed to, that, of course, Democrats haven't done enough to solve. But, yeah, it was an optical loss for Joe Biden. But I don't think it would have been the same here. Of course, the Maui thing that we talked about last week was another optical loss for Biden. But in the grand scheme of things, if we're just talking optics, not morality, Biden will be fine. I don't think this will play much of a role.
That's the angle I'm thinking of it from.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
All right, does that end our news segment for the week?
I think that does wrap us up for this week. A little bit of a short episode. I don't think I have COVID. I'm probably gonna test. I feel like I got a little bit of COVID brain going on with this one, gang. That's okay. The studio's infested. It's all infested. The liberals are taking over. PLANdemic 2.0.
Yeah, I really do hope that things don't close down again. That would be really sad.
God, that would suck.
I don't think it's gonna happen. But doing the podcast from Zoom would be rough. We'd be like all the content creators in 2020 that do work with like other people. We'd have to be just like them, and that's not fair. We're different.
That's not fair. I'm built different. The chemistry, it's crazy. It's there, but it's there. It's just hard over Zoom. You don't get it.
We got loyal patrons expecting good work out of us, and we can't do that if we're over Zoom. We just can't.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The magic, the spice. It's just some of it's lost.
Also, we've spent a good chunk of change on equipment that we both use in person.
And it was fucking hectic yesterday trying to go through all the equipment to try and split it up to figure out how we were gonna do it on Zoom. Cords for mixers we haven't used in 2 years, just gone through in the vault. Something. Oh my goodness.
We can't we can't let all that hard work putting the studio together go to waste. Especially it's not because of a plandemic. Another one.
Oh my god, I know.
Yeah, but
not that there's even going to be another one. You know what I'm saying? Not that I'd even saying that, but just what if as a little thought experiment.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. Well,
as a thought experiment to get you to maybe go and check out patreon.com/head in the office so that even if there's PLANdemic 2.0, we can rent out a studio and quarantine it ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can live there. We can eat there, do everything we need at that studio.
It's like the NBA bubble.
Yeah.
We got the Hiddo bubble, and we could just be in the hotel room locked up. Like, man, you don't even understand how rough it was in there at that 5-star resort. You know what I'm talking about? You know that LeBron video I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't want to be locked up with everything I could possibly need.
Exactly, bro. I do not want to enter the Hiddo bubble. So to thank the people that could potentially keep us out, or I don't know, maybe even keep us in. Give a special thanks to Nikki Nine Lives, Caden Kraut, Lord T the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Talia Kotz, 40% Spite, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Dylan B, Kaz, Caleb Joy, Jim Bobs, Carl D, Rich Toro, Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Vesquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cuts, Gregory isn't my name, Very Yook, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Bennett Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Moises T, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's boyfriend, Jonathan Cassis, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Sines, Aaron and his Gundam Gundams, Darth Father,
Aiden Taylor, Corey Chambers, Sewer Snack, Eliane, John Glover, Weed Thief 69, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, I lost my place. Retro Mono, Meatball Minion, Emma the Dude Slayer, Claire McMillan, Breezy B, Elijah Murray, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grotler, Magic Ian 95, Flower Clown, Jasper and Garris, Beetlebugs, Three Crows in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Gone, Aquana Don, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Ishi Teddy, Cammy, Calliope, Reagan Not Like the President, Pagan Jester, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Pab the Pab 69, Kayla Lowe, Anna Volinick, Eduardo Diaz, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Mason Crack, Howard the Duck, and my mom. Thank you all so much.
Oh my goodness, so much. All you beautiful, wonderful, kind, saved people.
Saved.
I mean, if we're talking the chosen few, you know what I mean.
You know how RFK a couple weeks ago, RFK Jr. a couple weeks ago, not the one that was assassinated in the 60s, of course. RFK Jr., he got on he was at some conference, and he said that Ashkenazi Jewish people and Chinese people were able to duck COVID. Well, now the next conspiracy theory, when the PLANdemic 2 comes along, is that, how did all of the patrons of Head in the Office duck the pandemic, but everyone else got it?
My goodness, that's crazy. All of the patrons were able to get it. None of them got sick. Everyone's dead now. Everyone else.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous what's going on.
Somehow
these engaged cooking up.
Those 175 or so people over at patreon.com/Head in the Office pod they got infected and survived just fine without a vaccine. What's going on here?
Conveniently, what's going on here? It must be genetically targeted because they all have a common genetic linker.
Yeah. When you join Head in the Office, it's something biological that made you do that.
A transformation, really, a metamorphosis, if you will, that goes on inside you, and you all become one.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. We are the Cabal.
We are the Cabal, and you know, I don't say this lightly. The 175 tribes of Hiddo. That's what's going on here.
Yeah. The elders of the protocols of the elders of Hiddo. That's us.
Call those the show notes, baby. What can I say?
All right. Thanks for listening to the show, everybody. Abolish the FBI, and we'll catch you next week.
Cut myself off.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
We'll catch y'all later.